Sports Lounge 274. Clemson won a national title. Charlie's here. How's everybody?
I'm good. How are you?
Clemson won, so I'm fine. I am fine. Folks thought they thought Alabama would win. They thought Clemson had a chance to win. These were obviously the two best teams. People thought there was a chance maybe Alabama could blow Clemson out, but people didn't think Clemson could blow Alabama out. I guess they were down 21 about halfway through the third. I think that was the point where I kind of thought, yeah, that was the point where, all right, something has to happen here or this game is done. Where was that point for you where you thought, all right, this is over with?
There was a point where I probably thought Clemson was going to win, but the point for me when it went from like they're probably going to win to they're definitely going to win, I think it was back-to-back drives. There was a touchdown late in the third quarter on an impressive throw and catch by Clemson that I think put them up by 28. And then I think the next possession, Alabama had it first and goal at like the 2, and Clemson held them 4 straight plays out of the end zone.
Yeah.
I thought it was probably over before then, but that was like the door slamming shut. That was violently the Undertaker slamming the coffin closed on Yokozuna or whoever else and being like, yep, donezo. This is over. Rest in peace.
You were impressed with the defense. I was impressed with the defense. First quarter, I
was impressed with the offense too. But I mean, when you take into account how good Alabama's offense had been, I'm even more impressed with their D.
They gave up a lot in that first quarter, and I thought, all right, we're going to get 45-41. We're going to get the usual Clemson-Alabama game that we've had here these past couple of years where there's a lot of points. But then I think that even makes it more impressive that after that first quarter, they basically shut them out. That was very impressive.
I 100% agree. And it is incredibly funny / impressive and strange and ironic that the best Alabama offense under Nick Saban, maybe the best Alabama offense ever, is the one year that their offense lets them down in the national title game. I mean, their defense also made mistakes, but I'm stunned that they couldn't get to 20 points just by the way they had played the entire year. So certainly mega kudos to, I guess I shouldn't say mega, since now people are talking about Dakotas being a mega coda. So I will say extraordinary kudos to Clemson's defense for rising to the occasion.
And Clemson should have scored more than they did. They had these goal line opportunities inside the 10, inside the 20, a fake field goal, a missed field goal, missed kick. So they had chances to maybe score 30 points, but that just didn't happen, and they were in a position where late they had to go for it on fourth down. And that defense just continued to hold. So that was very impressive. So Clemson finishes 15-0. As you know, Stacken loves the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence.
He's quite high on Lawrence. Wants to trade every Vikings draft pick for the next 5 years to get him.
I talk a lot about how we change, our thoughts change throughout the years and all that stuff. And I don't want to say Stacken is still a kid, but it's that's something we would have said in the 5th grade, wasn't it? Let's trade all of our picks for this one guy. It's well, if he turns out to be great, then it's worth it. But again, we don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knew what was going to happen in this game, and nobody knew that it was going to happen this way. So Christ almighty, if I don't know what the fuck their quarterback is going to do 3 years from now as a rookie playing for who the fuck knows,
You would think the Vikings learned their lesson with Herschel Walker trading all those draft picks.
As Stacken comes here, yes. Pose that question to Mr. Goddard himself.
Stacken, how's it going?
Well, we can't.
But can you not hear me?
All right, now we can.
Okay. We're feeling a little under the weather today. So the normal spunky.
Oh,
And
If we could take sick Stacking and mix him with drunk Stacking, I think we would get normal Stacking. So the water's not going to do
Or
it.
the most hilarious Stacking.
you're just going to get a much more mild down version.
Mild picante sauce Stacking.
We don't like that stuff. Go for hot or go home.
Stacking, something we recently came up with. I'm gonna pose this question to you because you have talked a couple of times about being very high on Trevor Lawrence and willing to depart with multiple high draft picks to get him.
Yep. Tank for Trevor.
Do you feel the same way? I mean, I think we can debate to what degree, but to a certain extent, history repeats itself, especially in sports, probably in the real world, but the real world's more serious, and I don't like dealing with that.
Okay.
Do you recall that there was a point in time that the Vikings traded all sorts of players and picks to get Herschel Walker, and it ended up working out much better for the other team involved than for Minnesota? Does that give you pause at all thinking of that?
No, because Herschel Walker was an older player. This guy's a rookie. Given all the Vikings' woes at the quarterback position, I would not hesitate to take a chance on a Trevor Lawrence.
You know what's remarkable about the Vikings and their quarterback woes, you could put it that way, but every quarterback they get is good. And every quarterback they get performs better with the Vikings than they did previously and which they perform after. Culpepper obviously had an injury. Cunningham had the best year he ever had. Favre, as a Hall of Famer, had the best year he ever had. Case Keenum, where the fuck did that come from? Stats-wise, Cousins had a great year, just too many fumbles and turnovers, but he had 300 yards and 30-some touchdowns, and stats-wise are great, and Jeff George, and the list goes on and on and on.
You're absolutely 100% right.
They don't stay very goddamn long.
No.
They might be old, and Bradford was certainly good, and all these guys. But when they get here, Jesus Christ, they do meet they exceed expectations almost without question.
They do,
which is incredible.
Except Donovan McNabb.
Fuck, he was bad. And thankfully that was a quick old this guy's done.
I think Christian Ponder, of course, we remember the Vikings taking him 12th overall. I'm like, who in the hell is this guy?
Well, we knew he was, and we knew he wasn't good. That's why we were very upset.
2 degrees in 3.5 years. Good for him.
Wow.
It turned out that when they drafted Christian Ponder, they had seen a multi-years in advance sneak peek of the movie Moneyball and listened too heavily to the scout that was like, no, he needs a good-looking girlfriend. That's how you know he's got confidence. And I think that's the only reason they drafted Christian Ponder.
He was a winner in life. I'll give him that.
He's Mrs. Sam Ponder in this.
What was her name before?
Steele? No, God dang it, what was her name? Steele, I thought is what it was, but let me pull that up here.
So the quarterback was good. Tua did not play well. Too many turnovers for a guy that didn't turn the ball over really until he played 2 best teams he's played ever. So.
It is Steele. It is Steele.
With an E. Did you ever think, Charlie, that they would switch quarterbacks?
This game, I did not. I didn't think they would last year against Georgia either, but was less surprised then. The way that he had played all year. I mean, I didn't seriously think they were ever going to go to Hurts, just because Hurts has never been a good passer.
I think I talked about, me and Stack and talked a little bit about this on whenever the hell it was, Wednesday.
Tuesday, I think. Tuesday.
Yeah. I thought, people were overreacting a little bit, and you kind of talked about, Alabama is just the end of the deal. We'll wait and see.
I made that mistake like 5 years ago. Wrote that piece for the Sports Lounge website.
It's kind of like New England. Is this the end? Well, they're playing for a Super Bowl, going to the Super Bowl next week, so obviously this
ninth straight year.
I mean, that's unbelievable. Again, that's the greatest. You give me your Yankees, your whatever. I mean, that's what New England's done for 18 years has been the greatest thing I've ever seen sports-wise in my life. UCLA, Boston Celtics, whatever. This has been the most impressive thing. So, at worst, Alabama's like a number 2 now because Clemson, I mean, these teams have played for 4 years, and they have been exceptional games and very impressive performances.
I'm sure you guys both saw the stat too that like both Alabama and Clemson are 55-4 over the last 4 years, so they both have the same record. They both have 2 national titles. They're both 2-2 against each other. So
and
like as even as it could possibly be.
2 of those 4 losses are against each other, so they've literally lost 2 games in 4 years. What was it? Syracuse and who else? Somebody else.
Syracuse and Pitt for Clemson, and it was Ole Miss and Auburn last 2 years last year for Alabama.
So I don't know how you feel, Charlie, but I thought people kind of overreacted a little bit. Is Clemson maybe number 1 now? Sure, but like Alabama, they're number 2, and everybody expects them to play again next year. For the 2 best teams, I don't know if we're going to see it for a 5th straight year. That'd be quite unbelievable.
We will.
Well, we'll see. I think Georgia's obviously.
Who? I said who is 3?
I mean, Georgia, you don't think Georgia's like there?
I think Georgia can be, but I don't have faith in them, and they just lost a whole bunch of guys to the draft on both sides of the ball. I mean,
well, like Georgia again, yeah. And Ohio State's always there, and the usuals. But like Georgia, they played, like we said, when they played Alabama, they played them twice here, and they've led and dominated for 95% of the game. They didn't win the games, but as far as game control, like they outplayed Alabama. They just didn't have 1 more point. Like to say that Georgia can't beat Alabama, it's like they've played 2 years in a row, and if this was a boxing match, Georgia would have won both. So,
and they will probably play in the SEC title game again next year.
There you go.
I'll be very curious in the SEC East next year to see if Missouri can do anything with Kelly Bryant at quarterback.
Like he was okay at Clemson. It sucks for him because the 2 guys, the guy before and after him, have been the 2 best they've ever had.
The 2 best quarterbacks in school history.
So, and that'll be interesting. What are your expectations, Stacking, as far as – I mean, they had Drew Lock, who's going to maybe be a top 10 pick, who I don't think much of.
Is Drew Lock better than Blaine Gabbert?
Yeah, most people are.
I mean, Florida will be right up there. South Carolina looks like they've hit the dumps. Tennessee and Vanderbilt can kind of be right in the middle there. All honesty,
Kentucky.
Well, you're losing Snell, their all-time leading rusher, but you never know.
And that dude on defense who was their best player. I don't remember.
The good Josh Allen. The good Josh
Allen. So I mean, you never know what can Kentucky build on that? Absolutely. But they're going to have to go to Georgia next year. So I would say if there is one team to keep an eye on in the East, I will just say it's Missouri in large part because of Kelly Bryant. And I was all ready to go all in on Iowa State next year, playing in the Big 12 championship game against Texas, and then David Montgomery and that Butler, that wide receiver, both declared for the draft. I'm like, you know what? Nope, I'm off that train.
That receiver, count me in. I said this, Stacking, count me in on that guy.
Yeah,
that guy.
Keem Butler's pretty good.
Jesus Christ.
He's outstanding. And watching the Saints game today just keeps reminding me every time that the Vikings could have taken Michael Thomas. Instead, they took Laquan Treadwell. That's awful.
Vikings picking receivers not named Moss. Not the best. In the first round, at least. So Clemson wins the national title. Stack, can you say you're not going to get sick of them?
No. And I think it's a little...
Because we picked them so many years ago.
Right. Yeah, they became the adoptive team of the sports lounge and the TV show and the radio show, everything. And there's just there's something different about Clemson versus Alabama and the nauseating fans at Alabama. Maybe it's Dabo Swinney's a more likable fella than Nick Saban. I don't know what it is, but to me, there also hasn't been a history with Clemson really in the past. But they had one national championship in 1981 or something like that before. Versus Alabama is a storied historic program, Paul Bear Bryant and all that jazz. I just don't think I'm going to get tired of Clemson for a while. Now, eventually, yes, I mean I'd like to see some teams maybe compete with them, like my Hokies, but I don't foresee me getting tired of Clemson winning anytime within the next couple of years.
Would you compare Clemson to Golden State? Team?
Yeah, I think that's a fair
pretty good comparison. I think it's pretty good.
Yep, I think so. I mean, you have guys who are really likable and just they're so dominant. Yeah, nope. I think that's a very good comparison.
Charlie, I think Georgia can compete with them. Ohio State, with or without Urban, I think they're going to be fine. Oklahoma.
I talked about this with stacking, and those were the three teams that I came up with. Like those are the only three before we know everything with people leaving and getting hurt and schedules and yada yada yada. I think those are the only three teams, along with Alabama and Clemson, that as of now I would say conceivably could not just make the playoffs, but no, you could be in the title game and maybe have an outside shot at winning.
I tell you, I'm kind of all in with Texas next year too, to at least to make the playoff. Not that they're going to really be able to compete with Bama or Clemson, but I think they are a legit playoff team next year.
Their quarterback good enough?
Yes. He's only a sophomore this year?
I think he's going to be a senior next year. I thought he was a junior. He was either a sophomore or a junior, one of those two. He'll be back.
Michigan, LSU, Notre Dame, they'll be all up there. People going to blow their load on A&M. So, yeah, usual teams will be at the top.
Maybe next year is for Oregon with Justin Herbert as their, as the senior. I mean, that's probably the team to watch out for in the Pac-12.
Somebody's got to win the Pac-12 next year. If they can do it with one loss or fewer, they'll have a chance to get in the playoffs.
What'd you say, Crins, on the podcast that the Pac-12 should no longer be counted as a Power 5 conference because they're so bad?
Well, it's not just the basketball, and it's football too.
Yep.
This has been for multiple years. This isn't it's a 1 year, 2 year thing.
Yep.
This has been 3-4 years. I mean, Washington didn't make the playoff, but this conference has not been good. Charlie, do you feel like, the other four conferences have far exceeded them, whether it's money or interest or competitiveness or facilities? Or are they on the brink of kind of falling off here and being well behind the other four?
I'm going to preface this with I don't think this is a Big East college football situation where they're going to get demoted and have their automatic bids stripped away. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think we are kind of clearly to a point where the Big Ten and the SEC seem to generally be above the rest of the conferences because they make so much more money and invest more in coaches and stuff. And I think after that, the Pac-12 is still, especially the last 2 or 3 years, is significantly lagging behind even the Big 12 and the ACC. So, yeah, I don't think that it's going to get to the point where it's only a Power 4, but I think the Pac-12 is going to be looked at as the redheaded stepchild until somebody like USC or Oregon or whoever starts actually no, we're really good and we're beating other good teams and bowl games and stuff like that. Maybe not winning a national title, but we're making the playoffs and we're steamrolling someone in the first round.
Totally spitballing here. You could shoot this down right away. But do you think travel is a hindrance, or is that a negative factor in the Pac-12 just because these schools have to travel so far to play their opponents versus I get that Miami has to play Pitt every year or something, or Boston College. So there is a lengthy plane ride there, but just overall, it's not like you can go on a bus drive apart from one school for most of these teams. And Utah playing in the mountains, that's a distinct home field advantage, for them because of the thin air and whatnot. I just wonder if maybe travel if it impacts the Pac-12 more so than other conferences. I would say.
I mean, it might not help, but if you look at the mid-major conferences, all the mid-major conferences still have teams that rise up and go 11-1 or 12-0.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Central Florida doesn't have any problem the last couple of years traveling, from Texas up to Boston or to upstate New York or places like that. So, like, I get what you're saying. I think it maybe is a small factor, but I think it would be like not in like the top 7 or 8 reasons why.
And then you look at the basketball side. I really hope they're a one-bid league. I think they'll probably get 2, maybe 3 in. I don't think they'll get more than 3. Arizona State, Washington, maybe Arizona. Other than that, and that's about it.
Arizona State lost this
Oregon,
week. No.
And if they get in, it's like, well, they're going to be like an 8, 9, 10 seed.
UCLA's won
probably going to get 2 teams.
3 or 4 in a row since they fired Steve Alford. I think Oregon State's maybe a team that you have to look out for, but I think Arizona State's kind of tapered off a little bit. So yeah, I think it's going to come down to Arizona and Washington in the Pac-12. I wish Arizona would not make the tournament this year, but unfortunately, I don't see that happen. Our Butler squad's not going to make the tournament this year, and Xavier, Butler and Xavier, both out.
We're on Marquette. We're on the Marquette.
Okay.
I forgot that UCLA fired Steve Alford. Who are they going to hire as their head coach? Because they should be able. I would think they'd be able to get somebody pretty good, and it's hopefully a better hire than Steve Alford out in New Mexico was.
I mean, that's kind of the reason why the Timberwolves fired Tom Thibodeau, is because it was rumored that UCLA was making a run at Fred Hoiberg, and the Timberwolves were like, yeah, we kind of want Fred Hoiberg in there. And I mean, so that's really the only name for sure that I know of that's been linked to UCLA. I don't know if he would take it. I think he would much rather be in Minnesota, but I mean, it seems like Ryan Saunders, Flip's son, is doing a pretty good job thus far.
I'd say give him the job. If he keeps us up, see what happens between now and the All-Star break and March. Yep. If he's fine, keep him there. I'm fine with that. So,
well, he's well respected. I mean, he's Flip's son after all. And
right. Charlie, a lot of people like Nebraska for next year.
I feel very uncomfortable, even though they're under new management, not just at the athletic department and the university as a whole. I have too many memories of the last 12 years where it would be like, hey, maybe they're going to do something, and then it's like, oh, they went 8-5 or 9-4. I think they'll be good on offense. That's all I'm willing to say as of right now. Post-signing day, post-spring game, I will read enough stuff that is essentially from the Nebraska football industrial complex of the state of Nebraska, and will be convinced that they're going to go 11-1, and then we'll tone myself back down to like 9-3 or 8-4 by the time September starts, or we do the August preview show.
So everybody likes Zach Taylor, former Nebraska quarterback.
That is correct.
He's what going to be
who, if they had the concussion rules they had now, would have only played about 5 games at Nebraska his sophomore year.
Where's it going to? Jets,
the Bengals. The Bengals. Yeah, they haven't announced it yet, but I think it's that Sean McVay and infection that's just going around.
Yeah, what is this? Your young guy, offensive. I mean, what is this? I mean, it's the new trend. It used to be, I don't know, maybe defensive coaches, and now it's young offensive guys.
Well, how about the AFC East? Brian Flores is going to most likely be the Dolphins head coach. Is he the Patriots defensive coordinator, or is he just their secondary coach? I don't know, but the Adam Gase is a recycled, coach now in New York. So I don't know what the hell's going on with that AFC East. It's like they're trying to let New England win as many division titles as they possibly can, even when New England seems slightly vulnerable.
They're attempting to turn into the NFC West circa like 2010, 2011, where it's like, oh, you went 7-9 and you made the playoffs. I mean, outside of New England, obviously.
Mm-hmm. I guess the Bears guy, Fangio, maybe was the only maybe.
He was the only what? Right? Didn't hear that.
And like he's like 61 years old. Like he seemed to me like a pretty good hire, but is there any like, oh, this is the next guy, this is the next big, like Josh McDaniels, his time has come and gone, or Adam Gase, his time has come and gone. Is this, I don't just know who's out there. There's a bunch of dudes, bunch of old dudes.
Eric Sleeping with Bieniemy is the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. I think that's a name to.
But again, Andy Reid offensive coordinators, like he's not calling the plays. So how much do you give a guy who's an offense like whoever the fuck the Vikings defensive coordinator is? What do you do? You're sure as hell not calling the plays.
Yeah.
Brad Childress was there and he was okay. Like when you are a coordinator and you are not the play caller, that is interesting.
Yeah,
I have a hypothesis I just came up with off the top of my head.
Yes.
That I'm sure this is not going way out on a limb. I'm sure other people have mentioned or thought of this, maybe even on this show before, but that there's so much turnover in football, in college football's having more turnover than they used to, and you throw in the NFL where guys are getting fired sometimes after 1 year or, 2 years, that we're just cycling through so many guys that were out of qualified candidates.
Yeah.
And that's how it's just like, well, all the guys that everyone wants to hire was hired 3 years ago. So we're going to take a chance on this guy who has only been a coordinator for 1 year and has been a position coach for 6 years, but they were good that 1 year most recently. So let's roll the dice on this. That's kind of what it seems to be turning into.
It's not even like their offensive coordinator, like they're good offensive coordinators. These guys are quarterback whisperers. I mean, why did Cliff Kingsbury get a job as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals? It's because he coached Pat Mahomes, and he also had Baker Mayfield in the quarterback room as well for a time. I mean, in all actuality, that's probably the only reason why the Cardinals took him and hired him.
I still can't believe that the Cardinals hired him, but we'll see how that works out.
And then the Cardinals are going to potentially take Kyler Murray, number 1 overall. That's if Kyler clears for the draft.
I would love it. I would love it.
But you're just going to get rid of Josh Rosen like that? I mean, it's not Rosen's fault that the offensive line stuck to high heaven. And
who's better? Is Kyler Murray better than Josh Rosen? Would he be a better fit with that new coach?
I think potentially he could be, but don't you have other needs on your team? Like Arizona is bad. That roster from top to bottom is bottom. I think they would be far better suited to go with like a Nick Bosa or someone like that than Kyler Murray.
What I like, I guess what I don't like are teams that, I don't know, kind of feel obligated to a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback and say, well, we drafted him, so we have to give him 4 years. And it makes sense to do that in most cases. But with Ponder, it became pretty evident after year 2. I'd say, yeah, there's not much here. And then after year 3, it's like, well, we know he's not coming back. Jacksonville got fucked with bottles because they somehow thought that because they had the best defense in football, they should give their quarterback a $65 million extension for 3 years. So these teams shouldn't confuse winning with the quarterback being the reason why they win. Just because you win a bunch of games doesn't mean the quarterback is why.
But Josh Rosen's not the reason why the Cardinals lost.
Well, he didn't help. He certainly wasn't a reason why they won. So if you can get something for him, I guess, and if you think, and if you want to move on after him for 1 or 2 years, then that's fine with me.
Okay, so if you are going to trade
this
Josh,
isn't a fair comparison
He
for
was
Josh
not good.
Rosen.
Not good.
This isn't a fair comparison, but Andrew Luck had a pretty bad roster and made the playoffs his first 2 or 3 years.
well, look at this year too. I mean, that was not a.
It looked like Sam Darnold. Some stats I saw, he was good at the end of the year. I don't know if we saw that with Josh Rosen. So, if teams don't have to be handcuffed and prisoner to a guy, it's because they took him in the first round. So, I mean, that would be interesting. You bring in, I would love it because instead of bringing in, I mean, those two fit. Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury, Oklahoma's offense, Texas Tech's offense. On paper, that looks like a perfect fit. Then
I would trade Josh Rosen. If
they would have to do
kind of game plan, I would do that though.
Can you play Josh Rosen, and if he continues to struggle next year, well, here you have Kyler Murray. Like could you not do that? Or
looking at this like a Alex Smith, Pat Mahomes sort of situation where
Kirk Cousins, and RG3. You picked RG3. You picked Kirk Cousins in the 4th round. Well, what do you need 2 rookie quarterbacks for? Well, RG3 who had a great rookie year, and then he injured his ACL, and then that was it for him. Well, and they had Kirk Cousins, and he's done well. So,
and all this is pure hypothetical because we don't even know if Kyler Murray is going to declare for the draft.
Yeah.
Also, the Broncos always seem to need a quarterback ever since John Elway left. Other than those however many years Peyton was there,
and he has to be at least 6'6". So,
I got a guy. Trade Carson Wentz to Denver.
Sure. Trade him to the Vikings.
No. Why? So he could just get injured again? No. You know who I want. You know I want Trevor Lawrence.
I don't want him. So the Eagles lost. I don't watch these games, but it looks like the reason why they won last week and the reason why this was a competitive game this week, not because of the quarterback, but because of the defense. Like Nick Foles was not the reason they won last week. They had the pass at the end. That's fine, but they scored, 15, 16 points. And they got up to a 14-0 lead here and didn't score the rest of the game.
Well, he threw 2 touchdowns in the second half against the Bears last week.
Well, 14 points is not going to win you playoff games unless you're playing Frank. And maybe.
Right.
Foles
or you have that Broncos defense that won the Super Bowl 3 or 4 years ago.
That's why yes. So, Nick Foles did this run again, and I was rooting for him to do it because unique story. But, again, going back to the bottles thing, was Nick Foles maybe at the end of the regular season you could give him credit, but was he the reason why they went on another playoff run against the Bears and the Saints?
Yes.
He was good?
I mean, his throws, they had a stat on, under pressure, his completion percentage or his passes are the best in football when he's under pressure. The placement of his passes was very good, and you can't blame this loss on it. I mean, you could blame it in part on Alshon Jeffrey for
14 points. I mean, if I told you they're going to 14,
well, they have 14, and then they're all
18 of 31, 200 yards, 207. That's not good.
They're
looking at stats, it's not good.
Their Pro Bowl guard Brandon Brooks got carted off early, so that didn't help. And I guess Sheldon Rankins, the Saints defensive tackle, also got carted off. So, I mean, it's kind of a wash there. I think that eventually the Saints just kind of settled in. But I don't know. If I were the Eagles, I saw this getting floated out there that the Eagles might say, hey, we're going to pay you $15 million for you to play 5 or 6 games a year because inevitably Carson Wentz is going to get injured. Why don't you stick around here with us? That's a lot of money to tie into your backup quarterback, but he is the most valuable quarterback out there. I don't know if he's going to
But
do
the
that.
most valuable
Valuable
backup quarterback.
Right, backup quarterback. Yes. I
There's
don't know
not a
where
ton of
it's gonna go.
age difference here. There's only a 3-year difference. Carson Wentz is old. He's 26.
And he's injury prone. Cut ties with him.
Nick Foles will be 30 next week, next Sunday. So 3.5, 4-year difference there.
Stacking, based off your cut Carson Wentz thing, I just want to float this scenario for you.
Mm-hmm.
How would you feel if they cut him? He was signed by the Green Bay Packers, spent 2 years under Aaron Rodgers, and then became the next of the great line of Packers quarterbacks to routinely torch defenses for about 7 or 8 straight years.
I think I'd stop being a fan. I
You
don't
know,
think I
those
could-
Bison fans, you might see fewer North Dakota State jerseys around Fargo. There'd just be more Green Bay jerseys.
That's the same pukey colors, so
I don't know how Foles did in these playoffs, but he threw 4 interceptions here these last 2 weeks. So that's not good. Not good. We got the championship games I think everybody expected. Chiefs, Patriots, Rams, Saints. I think it's been like, 6 years in a row the 1 seeds won the AFC. So that would be the Chiefs.
that defense looked really good Saturday against the Colts.
This is a tough one. Patriots at – I don't think the Patriots have been all that great. Have they been on the road in maybe
3-5 this year.
in championship games?
Their last, I think they said on the Gamecast today,
Denver a couple years ago, I was close.
the last road win they have in the playoffs was 2006.
But how many have they played since then? Have they ever played a road game? They played Denver on the road, and
Yep.
have they played literally like one road
I think they played at the Ravens once and lost.
like you said, they've had a bye for what, 9 years in a row, 8
Yep.
years in a row, so they don't.
Yep, 9 years.
When you say 06, it's like, well, they may have only played one road game since then. They'll be an underdog. They'll be a 3-point underdog. This is interesting. The Patriots defense, which appears to be good, against Mahomes.
Here's
This is something.
here's how I look at
Even
this.
else is good.
The Chiefs lost to the Patriots 43-40 at Foxborough on a last-second field goal by Gostowski. Gronk is not going to be much of a factor in this one, I don't think. And if the Chiefs defense plays as well against New England as they did against, or if they play as well against New England as they did against the Colts yesterday, their offense won't have to be spectacular to beat the Patriots. I don't want to bet against New England, but it's not like they're going to, StubHub Center or, Paul Brown Stadium. This is Arrowhead, arguably the loudest stadium in the NFL.
Well, 20-second TO.
Okay.
I think it's a myth. Like Arrowhead's this tough place to play. Again, they haven't won a playoff game in almost 25 years. This is like this sports myth of how loud it is, and you don't want. I mean,
I'm just saying it's a
0-6. It's not. I don't know. This isn't. I don't know. Germany.
It's a more difficult place to play a game in the AFC or the NFL in general. I guess it was what I was trying to get at here. And plus, it's a conference championship game. I think how amped those fans will be. Even the guys who threw snowballs probably won't be in attendance. But
would you put
Hart says Chiefs, head is like 51-49 Chiefs, but then you're like, oh, that's stupid not to pick the Patriots. No, I would not put money on it.
Would you put New England, Pittsburgh, and Denver as better home field advantages than Kansas City, based on team /history /
I would, yes.
Slash whatever.
I would put Denver. I would not.
Like where did this thing start with Arrowhead Stadium? Yes, it's loud. They've had like 13-3 years. They've been good at home, but when it comes to the playoffs, they haven't. Where the hell does this start? These things.
Well, I think it used to be like 25 years ago, being a loud crowd made a difference. I just don't think it makes as much of a difference anymore because offenses have changed where they do so much silent stuff that it being loud, they're just like, well, we don't care. We don't have to yell stuff out anyway, so it doesn't matter if we can't hear each other.
What other?
That's my guess.
Any other things you can think of, like these sports things that are like, if you think about them, like, well, is that really true? Whether it's home field or a team or a player.
Well, how about the Vikings being constantly not able to get up and play for the big game? That's true.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of things that people say, like, oh, look out for this, but it's like, well, yeah, you don't really have to really look out for this because that's not a thing. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll think of something. But yeah, I mean, I think that this game's a complete toss-up. If these teams play the way they should, Kansas City should win this game. I think, everything in a vacuum, I think people would say Kansas City should win this game, but think about it, it's like.
I will be back, guys.
Okay. So, Pat Mahomes, hell of a start to his career.
I think you make a good point though about in a vacuum looks better.
They've been like the best. They've lost some games. They lost to the Chargers close. They lost to Pittsburgh, or they lost to New England close. They lost a great game against the Rams. Mahomes should win MVP. He will. And it was Breeze and Mahomes, and Mahomes has quite a few better numbers than Breeze does. Then there's some people that hold the losses against Mahomes. It's like, well, he scored 40 points in this game and had 5 touchdowns. It's not his fault. His team gave up 50 points. It's stupid things like that. I guess they think the loss, that goes back to the winning and the losing. Well, if you win, your quarterback must be good. And if you lose, well, what did the quarterback do that cost you the game? Well, that's not always the case. So Kansas City, I guess, should win. We saw what they did at New England early on. That was a long time ago, but I guess I would pick Kansas City, I guess.
I'm also going to take Kansas City. I'm hesitant in saying it just because I feel, as a Dolphins fan, just over the years, like having Vietnam flashbacks of the Patriots as underdogs rolling in and winning by 10 points in the divisional round or the AFC championship game to go to the Super Bowl. Like, as good as New England's been, I think it's been proven that they're certainly not unbeatable. They've lost, plenty of times in the playoffs over the last decade. You just need to be really good. It helps that Kansas City's playing at home. I agree that, their home field advantage is maybe not what some people make it out to be, but you would still much rather play at home than have to go play in Foxborough. And if you're going to beat them, you better be able to do something really good and have really good players. And I think their offense and what they do with Mahomes at quarterback, I think that qualifies as something they're good enough at that they can get New England, hopefully, out of their comfort zone.
I fear a Alabama-like reaction if New England loses.
So it's going to be much stronger for New England if they lose compared to Alabama, since Brady's old and Belichick's old. If they lose within 15 minutes of the game being done, or if for whatever reason they're getting blown out and it just appears there, it's over in all but the final score. Like, there's going to be people saying that it's their last game and they're going to retire, and how dare they ever play? It's going to be bad.
Like, why?
If New England loses,
you expect that. I expect that. That's probably what's going to happen. Whether they lose by 40 or they lose by 1. Why does that have to be the way it is? What are they accomplishing? Why can't they just say, well, they had a pretty good year. They lost, to the Titans and Jaguars and some pretty shitty teams. This probably wasn't one of the better New England teams we've seen, but they still got to the championship game and were probably the second best team in the conference. And they'll probably be pretty good next year when Brady's back. Why can't we just say that? Do we always have to say, well, this is it. This is the end of everything? Can't we just say they had a good year? They're going to be good again. Mahomes is great. Maybe these two teams will play again. We'll see.
I don't know. This is something I've noticed in sports over like the last 10 years. Maybe I just didn't notice it before. Have you noticed this? It seems like there's more of a thing of like we want to be the first to say something's done when it's done, especially when it's like a team's done and over with. And that even though it's stupid and it shouldn't matter, it's like we take pride in being like, no, I called that first. And I think it's just a case of everyone being like, well, I need to get on this too because, oh my God, I can't be the guy, in March saying, depending on who they draft, it might be good because, oh my God, they're not going to be good going forward. And then inevitably, almost always, people are wrong.
Because I don't remember this with Dallas and San Francisco in the 90s, even though they both kind of went out.
No, we knew they were done when they weren't making the playoffs anymore. Like even when they weren't winning the Super Bowl, it was always like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Steve Young and Jerry Rice, I mean, man, they got a shot. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, they lost their last two games, went 9-7 and didn't make the playoffs.
Once it got to like 96, once Dallas won that last Super Bowl, like Favre had his run. Then after that, it was like Dallas's thing ended pretty quick, about 99, 2000. San Francisco went a little longer. But again, 99, 2000, it was, I think they still made a championship game against the Packers, which they lost. I don't remember it being, so strong.
They had that weird game against the Giants one year. I think they won. That was, I was going to say 02.
Like
Jeff there was that snap. Yeah. That's right. Steve Young was gone by then. That's right. I forgot it was Garcia.
And San Francisco's been a weird. They'll be good, bad, like terrible for a couple of years, and all of a sudden they'll get good, then they'll be bad, then they'll be good. They've been very, 2-3 year chunks at a time, and they'll be surprisingly good all of a sudden. When was the last time that, 2 years ago was Packers Falcons? That was a blowout. Steelers Patriots, that was a blowout. When was the last time you remember two championship games that were, at least on paper, like these are the two games and teams everybody wants to see? I'm going through
a few years ago, there was the year that the Patriots lost in Denver, and I think that was the early game, and then the night game was the 49ers and the Seahawks, where I think that was the Richard Sherman calling out Crabtree at the end of the game.
That was 13.
I remember both those. It was like, oh yeah, these should both be good games, and all four of these teams are loaded.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I remember that they were both close games too. I don't know. I'm trying to think since then.
2011, Patriots beat the Ravens by 3. New England was down. They scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter to win. And then Giants-Niners, that was an overtime game. Giants won in overtime.
That's right, where that guy muffed those 2 punts for the 49ers or whatever, and that cost him. I'd forgotten. I would imagine that guy's not in the NFL anymore. Even if it wasn't because he was bad, it's because that was 8 years ago now.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Pretty good games. Yeah, we've had some duds, but so close to the Rams Chiefs. I don't think we'll get it. I think it'll be Saints. The Saints Chiefs. Does that sound right?
I don't know. For some reason, and maybe this is bad because I don't think Drew Brees is going to struggle 2 weeks in a row. Like the Rams just have more talent, so I'm thinking Rams Chiefs, which I guess would be a rematch.
Rams lost at Saints. I think it was a close game. A lot of points, I think, early on in the year. I think whatever the game is, it should be fine. Rams Chiefs, you got the rematch. Rams Patriots be fine, and it would be something. And that's just going to go back to the end of the New England thing because their dynasty started with the Rams, so will it end 20 years later with?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, that's a good bookend to this deal. Breeze and Brady, the two old bastards. That'll be a fine thing.
The two old gunslingers doing their Triple H versus Undertaker at WrestleMania thing.
Jesus, that's about right there.
With seven near falls.
Shawn Michaels is a special guest referee. So does that make Favre the coin tosser or what?
I think that does. I think that's accurate.
Manning or somebody. And if it's Saints Chiefs, a lot of points. That'll be fine. Super Bowl
and also if it's either Rams Patriots or Saints Chiefs, in addition to things you said, it will also be, like, is it the changing of the guard between the young quarterbacks and the old quarterbacks? There will be that also. And
each game next week has young, old, and we could get either of those coming up in a couple weeks. So Super Bowl, whatever this. Really hard to go wrong with any Super Bowl matchup. The Jets are not in there, so the Ravens are not in there.
The Ravens aren't there.
The Giants aren't in there, so I think we're safe from a bad game. So that is good. Aberdeen a couple weeks? How's the big city?
Yeah, it's good so far. It is. It's a bit colder here than it is.
How many times have you been there before?
Before my job interview, which was the middle of December.
I can't imagine there'd be much of a reason for you to go to Aberdeen before.
Nope, I'd never been there before, just like a month ago. Because, in high school, in North Sioux, or playing in North Sioux City. There were random weird playoff football games or like a classic for basketball where we would be, in Mitchell or Chamberlain or something, but never that far north.
Travis, I thought of
thought of a thing?
Yeah, and this isn't a great example, and again, feel free to shoot it down. But would this be like Kentucky getting all the freshmen and stuff? Like Kentucky's always the Final Four team with
that's fine,
or even like a second weekend team.
Like Duke is we'll see what Duke does this year. People expect them to at least be in the Final Four. But does this one and done thing really work? Kentucky's all in on it, but they've won. They're not a perennial Final Four team. That's
apart from Anthony Davis, they haven't won.
That's a good one. And maybe I'm going back to maybe the Missouri Valley is the best football conference. It's got the best team. Maybe it has the best two teams. I guess if you've got two top 5 teams, that's better than one. There's not one outlier. It's like, well. So that's maybe on the outer edges of that. Zach, and how many times have you been to Aberdeen?
None.
You've never been there?
I don't think so.
Don't feel bad. I'd never been here but until a month ago, Stacking.
I think I've only taken the exit to go to Aberdeen once, and that was to do something. We went somewhere when I was a member of the Pride of the Dakotas in college, and we went to some small town to do playing a parade.
Webster to perform for Brock Lesnar.
It could have been Webster for Brock Lesnar. Who the hell? I can't. Where's Waubay? Is Waubay up that way?
Yep.
I think it was
Waubay.
But that's the only time I think I've ever taken that exit.
What do you think? What Aberdeen? Good. I've been up there a couple times. Seems like a decent-sized town.
So far, I like it fine. There's a lot of similarities to Brookings. They're about the same size. South Dakota State is a larger university than either the Northern State and Presentation combined, especially enrollment-wise.
But Northern State's a big deal, and they get 2,000, 3,000, 6,000 people at a basketball game. It's very comparable to they outdraw SDSU most years in basketball. So there's big interest.
I have Northern State. Yeah, I will cover some Northern State things, but up to now I have not yet.
When I see,
But yeah, I mean, so far it's good. I have not driven around. This is the first time in my life I've ever moved in the winter as opposed to the summer or the fall.
You don't get out as much.
I've not. I mean, unless I've had to do something, I've basically stayed inside
apartment
because
to work, apartment to gym.
it's 20-some degrees outside.
I saw
but it's good. And my apartment has free internet, so that's fun.
Nice. I saw your tweet and you used what, PC for presentation in college, and I thought it was Presbyterian for a second there because I think the Blue Hose Presbyterian also used PC. I'm like, nope, that's presentation, Nathan. It's presentation.
It is presentation.
Are you busier than you thought you would be?
A little bit, but not much, and not that that's bad. I mean, it gives me stuff to do. Much busier than when I was at the Sioux City Journal, so that's nice that I've got.
How many people are in the 3-4 sports people?
Including me, there are 4 full-time sports people, and we have a intern for this semester who is a student at presentation.
Good.
Which I think everybody else is also very excited because they only had 3 people with no intern from like September until I showed up. And now, through April or May, they'll have 5 people. So it'll be like, I'm sure they're ecstatic. But they're just like, oh, I can do more. I mean, it's not, it's spread over more people, I guess.
Will podcasts continue in Sioux City without you? Do you plan on doing them in Aberdeen at some point? Or would you?
That's a good question. We have talked about that some at work. We have not gotten, I don't think I have since I arrived here, but I will probably be doing podcasting of some sort. If I do, it will be under a different name. I don't know if they're going to continue. I offered them in Sioux City that if they wanted to keep doing mine, they could go ahead and do it, and they said they would, but I don't know. I mean, they may have just been being polite. I don't know, but I feel like I can come up with other clever names for things too.
As long as you get royalties from the podcast.
That's true.
Portland, Denver, 60-56 here at the half. A fine game of ball, right here. When did you get your Goddard jersey?
Yesterday. It came in yesterday. I ordered it on Monday or Tuesday. It came Saturday. Just in time to wait months and lose.
It's already game worn.
Yep. You know what? You watch that game, and I was like, I don't really care who wins. Like, the only reason I would want to see the
Eagles. I would have preferred the Eagles just for the quarterback thing.
And see, I would have preferred the Eagles just for Goddard. But, I mean, Saints win does. It is
like we were talking about. I mean, these 2 title games. It's been a long time since we've had 2 games. Like everybody wants these games. These are the 2 best games, 2 best teams. So this is good. There's no Jets. There's no Bears. There's no Giants. Bullshit. Ravens out there. 2 good teams. There's no underdog. So that's a positive. And whatever the quarterback matchup or whatever the Super Bowl is going to be, you can't go wrong.
I think it's time that we stop saying that NFL divisional playoff weekend is the best weekend in the NFL season because
it says that. I don't agree with it, but whatever.
Wingo says that, and 3 of the 4 games were. I mean, I guess Cowboys Rams was okay, but I mean, Chiefs Colts and Chargers Patriots were not very good. Easily the best game of the 4 was. Eagles Saints.
It doesn't seem like these games have been fun or competitive.
No. So maybe the NFL needs to do something about that.
And because I generally had to work, I have missed all of the playoff games except for a little bit of the Saints game today. And it appears I've basically, unfortunately, I picked the right year for that, I guess. So that's nice.
Can we get the onside kick rule to change back to what it was last year? Like this is beyond ridiculous. there have only been 4 successful onside kicks this entire season.
They can't run up anymore.
Right, and you have to have an even number of players on both sides. It's stupid.
Why'd they change that? That's
For safety.
Fuck that.
So
Fuck.
I think you can keep the same kickoff rules in place, but just negate it for onsides. Like it's just stupid how the onside kick you lose all of the not saying that it was a high percentage, but I think it was like in the 20%, like 20% range last year, and this year it was 8%.
Yeah.
Like they were 452. So it's garbage.
It is. Charlie, we picked Kansas City. I think I'll pick. I think it's going to be Kansas City and Saints. 1 seeds, home teams.
I'm going KC and Rams.
Ooh, a battle of Missouri. Too soon, St. Louis? Too soon?
It's not because of your best friend stacking. Stan Kroenke.
Yeah. Well, no, between him and LeVar Ball.
Who do you hate more, Stan Kroenke or Carson Wentz?
Oh, yeah. Ugh.
I understand you hate Stan Kroenke because he moved a team and shady shit went on, of course, and stadium stuff. Like, I have no feelings, positive or negatively, towards the Rams.
No, I don't either.
It sucks for them and their fans and all that, but it's like, would you be up this set if you did this with the Nuggets? Or it's not necessarily the team, it's just what he did, regardless of if it was the Tampa Bay Rays or the fucking Predators or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's more just
him.
Yeah.
You're super.
Well, Saints.
Schedule to change in the stack this weekend. Schedule.
Yeah. I will go with the Saints to win because I just don't see how the Rams defense is going to be able to stop the Saints offense, and I think the Saints defense is more capable of containing the Rams offense. Now, the Rams offense has taken a significant hit, since Cooper Kupp tore his ACL. If he were healthy and playing, I think maybe that would sway me a little bit, but I will take the Saints, and to just stay on my father-in-law's good side, I'll take the Chiefs.
I assume he's excited. Where does he live up? He lives pretty close to there.
Yep, Moorhead.
I'm gonna assume he's very pumped.
Could be. I haven't talked to him since they won last night, so I don't know.
I'm assuming there'll be a big party if they win.
I assume so as well. And we normally watch the Super Bowl over there with them. So if the Chiefs are in it, I imagine the Bud Light will be flowing.
How did he get it? How do you be a Chiefs fan? Where did he grow up?
His grandfather, I guess, lived in Kansas City.
His grandfather was Hank Stram?
No. Lived in Kansas City or something, so they went down to Kansas City like every year or something for Christmas, and just kind of Chiefs. He's got a pool table from a billiards hall that the Kansas City Mafia owned or something like that down in Kansas City. So
Kansas
I
City.
have an aunt that lives in Kansas City.
Do you really? Is she amped about the Chiefs?
Probably.
I puked on the interstate outside of Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. I left a part of myself.
My mom got stung by a bee in the field between the Holiday Inn and Arrowhead Stadium a number of years ago.
Marcus said they were charging like $40 to park and $60 on game day in Kansas City yesterday.
Wow.
That's ridiculous.
That's a lot.
That's stupid is what that is.
Plus, with the snow, be nice to the people of Kansas City for that. Come on, man.
Garbage, I say. So, game should be fine next week. We'll see what happens. Anything else, Charlie, before we wrap up?
I don't know if I have too much else. Get a subscription or an online subscription to the Aberdeen American.
Ooh, yeah, I know. I click on the stories. All I see is the first goddamn sentence. So. There is probably as tight as anybody on the online stuff. Okay.
Yeah, because I know like what it was at the Sioux City Journal when I was there, and like many other ones that they would have stuff, but it's very easy to circumvent and still read it. I don't know of a way to do that with the American news. So pay for a subscription, that way I can keep having a job.
There's one on the Argus. This used to work. It hasn't worked lately. If you go, you got to go to the Argus website. You get like 5 articles free, and they come and go. Once your thing is up, I go to their website. I right-click on the story to get the link. I put the link into Google. It shows up on Google. And then there's a little arrow. You go, what is it, cache or whatever it's called?
Oh, yeah.
You look at it that way. You can kind of circumvent things. I don't think that works with Aberdeen.
Also, with a lot of them, you can either just delete your cookies or open it in an incognito window.
Yes, that does help. So
That's how I've read many Nebraska football articles over the last 3 or 4 years.
okay. I asked Marcus. I'm sure he'll ask you to vote in the football poll next year, high school football.
If he wants me to, I probably could do that.
Well, there you go.
7 classes of high school football in a state.
They're not doing. Yeah, I think I said this. They're not doing 6-man, so they didn't get enough schools to go 6-man. So,
Good.
how much, Charlie, did you get of South Dakota high school stuff being on the border there? How much? Is there anything that's come up that's been news or?
Like, were you asking, like, what schools did we care about for football season?
No,
Or?
just with South Dakota sports in general.
Oh,
6-man
almost
football.
none.
They talked about 6-man football. I guess there just wasn't enough interest, so they're not going to do that. Oh, there's really no other topics of.
Through work, I didn't hear anything. Any South Dakota stuff outside of Dakota Valley or Elk Point Jefferson would be, like, heard from you guys.
Yeah.
And that will be different going forward. We feel about North Dakota and Aberdeen now. And that's nothing against your state stacking. There's just not that many. There's a few schools in North Dakota we care about, but not that many.
Oh, that's fine. I don't care about North Dakota either. Truth be told, I've never been further west in North Dakota than Mapleton, which is like 10 minutes away from Fargo, and I've never been further north than the last exit for Fargo. Never. So I have just
Never
this
been
little.
north.
You've never been to Canada in your life.
You've never been north of even in Minnesota?
Never north of what?
Even in Minnesota, you haven't been north of Fargo?
No. I'm just saying in the state of North Dakota. So
Really? Even in
No.
North Dakota?
I mean, I've been to like Duluth and Ely and Grand Marais and everything.
Well, yeah, there's really no reason to go north of Fargo.
Unless you want to go to Grand Forks or Canada.
About it.
And
Anything
you don't
else
want to.
in Stacken's world? SDSU, they continue to roll.
Hey, Fort Wayne lost today to USD.
What?
That's good news. The Summit League appears to be kind of shit. So that's great. And
what's your sickness?
well, Noah got a stomach bug on Wednesday, and then Kelsey got it Thursday and Friday, and I is like throwing up and all this.
You all
fun
eat the
stuff.
same thing?
They had pretty much the same thing, and I just had some chills and aches and stomach's a little queasy, but nothing has come out on either end yet. So I have been spared the worst of it thus far, but you never know what the impending storm will bring.
Have you ever thought of getting a winter home in Felicity?
No, but Mean Gene might be a good place to make my winter home. Finally able to put 2 and 2 together about Mean Gene and Sisseton. So that's great news.
What do you remember, Charlie, about Mean Gene Oakland? He was in WCW late 93 on, so like in the prime wrestling years. He was in WCW, but in the 80s, WWF. What did he mean with anything towards you?
I did not see this live, but have seen it numerous times since then because it was such a big deal. The thing I will probably remember the most about Mean Gene is the interview in WCW. Was it Bash at the Beach? Yeah, where the NWO formed. Was that 96?
Correct.
Yeah, to me, that's the one that sticks out. That's the most Mean Gene moment where he was essentially like, Hulk, what are you doing joining these guys?
These cocksuckers. A lot of good videos out there, YouTube stuff, so that's good stuff. So
and it essentially launched the NWO dynasty that lasted, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, and then eventually had diminishing returns, like all wrestling does, kind of, or all stables do.
They don't last as long as Clemson, Alabama, or Golden State or the Bulls. They don't last as long. So there we go. It's a show 274. Next week may or may not have a show. We'll see. And we'll try to have our post-Super Bowl 10 o'clock late night show when the Super Bowl happens, 3 weeks from now. So probably a noon show in 2 weeks.
Good. A big 3-hour preview of the Pro Bowl.
Well, not quite that. We'll preview Nuggets Raptors or the hell the Nuggets are. So, there we go. For the folks up north, for the folks down south, it's been Sports Lounge 274. We'll see you.